Rentals are of two types, so-called over-the-counter, in which a customer walks in, requests something, and if you have it available, the customer takes it with him. We call this a walk-in rental. The other type of rental starts with a reservation. The actual rental may be scheduled for any time in the future, from a couple of hours to a couple of days to several months. For this demo, we'll see how to start with a reservation. Click the Reservations button. Click Create a New Reservation. The customer can already be in your list of customers, or you can add him anew. We'll pick an existing customer. The next step is to identify the date and time when this rental will start. Use the Calendar button to pick the date. The time will default to whatever you set as a system default, but you can change it by over-typing it. You can specify the ending date using either the Calendar button in the Rental End field or by specifying the number of units. For example, if we type 3 days, RentControl will adjust the ending number to be 3 days from the start date. Note that the ship date time and the return date time default to the values you set for the system as a whole. You can always change either or both of them if you need to for an order. RentControl asks for 4 dates because the cost of the rental will depend on the rental start and end dates, but inventory availability will depend on the ship return date times. In other words, if an item will be delivered the day before the rental starts, you won't necessarily charge the customer for that extra day, but you do want the system to know that the item is unavailable for any other rental starting from the ship date and time. Once the beginning and end dates are set, click the Next button. If you think of your rentals in terms of an event or a job, use the Job Event field at the top of this screen to identify this reservation with a name that will make it easier for you to find it in the future. There are 3 potential addresses connected with a reservation. The original name you picked is the order owner, but the reservation can also have a different shipping address as well as a different billing address. Or, of course, all 3 addresses can be the same as they are in this example. If you have salespeople who are eligible for commissions based on their work, use the Sales Data button to identify the salesperson for this reservation. You should also record the customer's creditworthiness and method of payment. Click the Credit and Payments button. In the Credit Authorization area, indicate whether the customer is known to you and trustworthy, that's established credit, or whether you will take a credit card to ensure that the rented items will be returned. If you pick the Credit Card Radio button, you'll have the opportunity to record the details of the card. In the Payment Terms area, if you expect to bill the customer, indicate his payment terms. If he will pay by credit card, select that option. If the customer will pay some or all of the cost of the rental in advance, you will use the Prepayment button found on the Credits and Payments dialog. But you will use it after you have added equipment to the order. We'll see how this is done a little bit later. The next step is to identify the items the customer wants to rent. Click the Reserve Equipment button. Because this is a reservation for the future, we are telling RentControl to reserve the items we pick, but to reserve them only for the dates of this reservation. In other words, if someone needs some of these same items before this rental commences or after this rental ends, RentControl should allow us to rent them, so long as the dates of the possible rentals do not overlap. RentControl asks you to group your inventory into categories and types. These are arbitrary names. A category is just a gross description of certain kinds of rental items. For a general rental store, as in this example, we have categories of concrete equipment, construction equipment, flooring, etc. If you had a party rental store, you might have categories of audiovisual equipment, linens, or glassware. A type is the specific kind of item in the category. For example, in the category concrete equipment, we have various tools for concrete work, like blades and floats. When you define a type in RentControl, you also define the prices you will charge for various periods of time, whether there are substitutes in your own inventory if something isn't available. In the case of machinery, whether you also add charges for metering or mileage, and much other information crucial to a rental. By being able to define a lot of critical information ahead of time, constructing the actual rental is quick and easy since all pertinent details automatically transfer. But even though you define many pertinent things like prices in advance, you can always change things if you need to. For this rental, we're going to pick the category party and the type folding chair, black. Notice that because we are reserving items of a category and type, RentControl only asks us to indicate how many we want. It will be later that we will indicate which precise ones will be attached to this order. We'll also add a coffee maker to the same order. This reservation now consists of 2 line items, 25 folding chairs in black and 1 coffee maker. Back on the main reservation screen, the pricing button is now lit up. We click it to see the pricing for this order as it stands so far. You can make a variety of changes to the order's prices from this pricing screen. You can discount all rental costs or discount the prices of all sale items. You can add a delivery charge or a labor charge, even alter the tax rates. If anything done on this price screen affects the order as a whole, as opposed to the individual reservation screen. For example, recall when we added the coffee maker to this reservation. We could have discounted the coffee maker on that screen and had thus a line item discount. If the customer will pay some or all of the cost of a rental in advance, then once some equipment has been reserved, click the Credits and Payment button. And use the Prepayment button to record the amount and origin of the prepayment. A prepayment differs from a deposit in this sense. RentControl assumes you will keep a prepayment, but that you will return a deposit. If you take money to ensure the return of your inventory, but expect to give that money back to the customer, use the deposit option to record the source and amount of the deposit. You can always turn a deposit into a prepayment if it becomes necessary. There are a variety of documents connected with any rental. They're all available from the Print button. You can see that there are reservation summaries with and without details. You can always do a price quotation, which does not actually reserve any equipment, but lets your customer see what you would charge. The pick list for giving to the people in the warehouse to pick the items for the rental, and of course a contract. The contract is the most commonly needed document. RentControl supports a variety of different formats for contracts. Some variations of the contract permit you to create graphic banners for the top and bottom of the contract. The top banner would typically contain your name and address along with a graphic logo. The bottom banner typically and briefly spells out your rental conditions and often provides a place for the customer to sign. Generally at this point, you click the Finish button and leave this reservation where it is. If the client makes changes to the reservation before it actually starts, you can find the reservation in the list produced by the Order Rental Locator and double-click it to open it in a new reservation screen and make whatever changes are called for, including removing items from the order, adding new items, or altering prices. When the time comes to start the rental, look for it in the list produced by the Order Rental Locator. Recall that so far we have only reserved inventory items. It's now time to do what we call attach, the exact inventory items to this order. Reserving is like writing a list of items on a pad of paper so you know what's needed. Attaching is like walking into the warehouse with the list and actually taking the items off the shelves. Generally, you open the reservation and do the attach very shortly before you plan to deliver the order or when you need to ready it for customer pickup. Start by clicking the Attach button. It will turn into an Equipment button. Then you click the Equipment button. The Attach screen lists all the assets that you have reserved. Those that are only reserved thus far have 2 red stars in the Not Done column, and in the extreme right-hand column, the number currently attached will be shown in parentheses. So a 0 in parentheses would mean none attached so far. Your inventory can consist of serial items. That is, each item is separately identified with an asset number and either a manufacturer serial number or a barcode. Or your inventory can consist of pooled items, which are not separately identified, or both. Typically, pooled items are items of little value or indistinguishable from one another. For example, in this reservation we're doing, our chairs are pooled because it doesn't really matter which particular black chairs we send, as long as we send 25. On the other hand, our coffee maker is a serial item because we only have the one and it's a more expensive item. To attach a pooled item, you start by double-clicking it. The screen you receive asks you to indicate the number of such items you will be attaching. You'll ultimately need to attach all the items you said you needed for the reservation, but you can do it in pieces if you need to. And if you have enabled the automatic attachment feature, you can click the Attach One or Attach All buttons as appropriate, as well as using the spinner buttons to indicate the number you're attaching. To attach a serial item, you also double-click it. But this time you get a list of all the serial items of the category and type in your inventory, and you must identify the specific one or ones you wish to send with this order by check marking the box to the left of the item. We only have one here, but there might have been more. Your inventory can also contain sale items, and sales items can be both pooled or serial. You can sell these items separate from a rental. There's a sale button on the main menu. Or they can be items that relate to things being rented and must be sold with the rental. For example, if you rented a sander, you might very well sell the sandpaper to go with it. In our example here, we'll sell a table cover. We start by clicking the Sales button. Party category and table covers, plastic. We've defined this category and type as sale items. Notice too that this is the screen on which you can discount an item if you need to. You can either provide a different discount amount than is showing, or you can actually change the net price to give the client a break. Sale items, like reservation items, must be attached. So we'll go to the Equipment button, and again, see the Not Done has 2 red stars in it. We'll double click the sale items and indicate that we want to attach one. When all needed items have been attached to the order, and of course after you've adjusted any prices that you need to, you can ship the order if it will be shipped ahead of the rental start date. You would click the Ship button and fill in the date and time that the shipment will occur. If you're not shipping ahead of time, you can start the rental directly by clicking the Deliver button. Adjust the date and time as needed and then click Save. Once you deliver the rental, billing begins and the order becomes an active rental. Consult the other tutorials in this series for how to return a rental and check its assets in, as well as for other topics of interest.